It is very honoring to see you here. What I am wanting to do with this video is to talk about runes versus tarot. Now, hold on. In no way am I saying that there is a sense of equality and superiority by using the versus statement. That part of this video simply is to make the titling a little bit easier. So the essence behind this video is I want to talk to you about some of the characteristics and qualities of the runes as a system that we can use for divination, in conjunction with systems that are a little more familiar for divination, like the tarot system. It's very interesting when you begin learning runes or talking about runes, depending on what your journey is with them. It does seem that by and large, more people are familiar with tarot than they are with runes. So this video also is serving the purpose of kind of helping bring in those people who would be looking for readings simply based off of tarot. I wanted to kind of open the avenue to let people know that what I do using the runes can be helpful in this way as well. So the next thing that I am going to talk about is this. I'm not an expert with the tarot, so my knowledge is very, very limited to basic and beginner compared to a lot of people out there. Whereas with the runes, my expertise is much stronger. In fact, I would say at this point that in my circles and communities, I am the one who has most of the knowledge. And this has created a space for me to build a class where I will be teaching the runes. So before I get into that, what I'm going to do is just give you a few basic key elements that are going to help you understand how tarot or the runes or the tarot can be used, and how these systems are similar and different in terms of what we're able to access or how we engage with them as tools to help us tap in with our intuition and guidance. So the very, very first thing that I will say, tarot decks are a combination of 78 cards. This is then broken down into a set of major arcana and 4 sets that are elements or element based. They carry elemental type energy with them, and these are more in line with what we might think of when we think of contemporary playing decks, where you have an ace and then you move one all the way through page, knight, queen, king. So there is in tarot a progression within each of these energies based off of the card that comes out. Now, the next thing I will say is that the tarot, my understanding of it is that it ties in more directly with concepts of our psychology. So tarot is a really useful tool when you're looking more at the psychology of a human or a person. It really is going to bring in those elements and have that capacity. And that is easiest to express when we're talking about the different things like the Fool the Fool archetype is an energy of someone who is beginning a journey. And at the beginning of the journey, there is more of a carefreeness. There is more of a, I can do this. There's been less time and impact over the experience of the journey for the individual to feel setbacks or detriment or to feel challenges, and then be brought to a place where they are then presented with this question of, well, how do you as the self deal with these challenges? And then you go from there. So this is my basic understanding of tarot. There are so many great people out there who read tarot and who teach it. So I am not going to step into that lane, but I did want to give that as the starting reference point. So if I were to summarize the energy of the tarot, or how I would associate it as being distinctly different from the runes and the things that you would hear if you were listening to my readings, or if you were to learn the runes to do your own readings and to work with them in that way, what you will find is that I talk about the psychology component of the tarot, because the tarot definitely has that element built into it, whereas the rune system does not. You can find it because inherently, as we are humans and as we work through things, these are going to show up in different ways. But in the rune system, you are not going to find those type of archetypal energies as expressed through the Fool, the Emperor, the Empress, the Hierophant, etc. The runes just don't have that built into their system, and here's why. So this would be the example of the Fool in the tarot deck. Now, in the runic system, I said that psychological archetypes don't exist, but you can still access that type of information. And it's because what you're channeling is the energy, or what you're engaging with is the energy of something. So in the runic system, we're looking a lot more at earth-based, nature-based components to give us these lessons or understandings that I just described with the Fool. With the runes, we have ingwas, and ingwas represents the seed. So with that seed energy, we still have this concept of new beginnings that I just talked about with the Fool. And if you were to do a reading and that came up, that could be one way that you could connect with ingwas. And that type of energy would be coming through about the unbridled desire to just move and go with the journey. But the seed gives us a wider way to engage with this concept. So rather than it just being the beginning of a journey, or, you know, moving forward and knowing that by the end of the journey in the tarot, the Fool transforms into the world, having had all the experiences and being able to look back and reflect and be this wise being that can then interact and engage with environment in different ways. Now, seed energy, when you're looking at this concept and you take away the archetype of it being a human or having that type of energy, what we see though with ingwas and this seed energy gives you access to more concepts like, look at the diversity of seeds in nature. Like, have you ever stopped to really think about how many different designs, how many different shapes seeds come in? or how they each have designed different mechanisms for their survival. Some seeds require being able to survive through digestive tracts of things like raccoons or bears, in the case of things like berries, strawberries, raspberries, etc. So that after the berry has been eaten and the seed is surviving in that animal, the animal is wandering around living his life, and when that goes through and the seed finally comes out of that stage of the journey, it is now geographically in a place that it could not have gotten to simply by being a seed on that plant. So in this way, that seed is able to travel. Do you see the beauty of that? And like, if you were to use that in a reading or an analogy, if that came through as the energy, now what we're looking at is this characteristic component, right? It's just the example that came through when I was trying to give you this illustration. So for the sake of this video, I'm not going to get into that too much further, but that kind of example, those ways of thinking about the runes and about our humanity and the way that we interact with the world, the way that we are connected into our spiritual selves, that is what I bring to the runes. That's what the runes have helped me do, and how I have transformed and developed in the years that I've been working with the runes. The runic system is based off of an ancient alphabet system. So inherently, anytime someone comes to the runes, we have to understand that there always could be a place for division of awareness. There are people who can come to the runes and look at them and use them as just literary tools, where you're using them as an alphabet and you're spelling out names, you're giving information by writing, by having an inscription in that way. But behind each of the runes is what for me is like an energetic core. So each of the runes represents an essence. It has an essence. And part of why there can be challenge when you're learning the runic system is because of how varied and how long and detailed the different descriptions and associations can be. And if you're wanting to understand more about that and really to dig into why this happens and why this is a beneficial thing when we use runes as divination, I will be going over this kind of stuff in much more depth in the class that I'm creating. But I'm going to circle back around again and say that the other thing that happens with the runes a lot of times, because it is based off of a language system, like I said, over time, the number of runes has shifted. The number of symbols that have been incorporated and used vary. So there is one set that consists of 24 symbols. There is another set that is only 16. There's another set that I think is 32. The research for that will be a lot more solid a little bit later, but and it really is like user's choice as to which symbols you connect with and how you want to use them. Now, for the runes themselves, like I said, it's the set that I use is the one that comprises of 24. So if I were to represent the runes in a card deck, they are substantially going to be much smaller than a tarot deck. And again, it simply is because the tarot, like I said, has 78 components. So what happens with the runes is we really are asked to connect back in with elements of nature. And by using these elemental correspondences and tapping into that energy, That is then how we look for guidance and direction. At least that is how I use them. Like I said, it's a pretty vast system, and there are a lot of different ways of engaging with it. Those are just some very, very brief sneak peeks into the ways that the rune system is different than tarot, but how they can both be used for divination purposes. If you are interested in learning more about the runes, I invite you to sign up for the email list that I have linked in the description box of this video. The tentative start date for the class, not the tentative start date, the class will be starting on August 16th. So we've got a little bit of time. I'm trying to let as many people know as possible, because the way the course is being designed so far, it is going to be based off of a minimum of 4 pre-recorded modules where you get to come in and basically collect the information and engage with it in the way that suits you. And these are going to be hosted on my teaching platform, so you get to log in and engage with that at your discretion. Now, after the first 2 weeks, after the first 2 modules have been released, I will be conducting a live session through video conferencing. So those who sign up for the class will be able to join this live session where we can talk about any type of questions or any type of experiences that are coming up for you as you are learning this system, as you're learning the runes and you're beginning to connect with their identities. And then after that live session, there will be 2 more modules that will kind of do further integration and are really going to wrap things up. Then at the end of all of those, so the 2 modules, the live training, and then 2 more modules, then we will have a final live session where people will join. Again, it is on my teaching platform, so it's not in a public space like the YouTube videos. There's going to be privacy and there's going to be respectful space for people to express their ideas and opinions and be open to asking questions and engaging and building a little sense of community with everyone who is going through this process at the same time. That is what I have for you for this video. I want to thank you so much for your time and your curiosity. If you are curious about learning the runes, I look forward to seeing you join the email list. You can also follow me on my other social media platforms for more regular daily type of content. So those are the ways to connect with me if you have further questions. I am looking forward to working with you, and I will see you at future videos. Be well.